My mother-in-law's face turned bright red with anger when I asked her about my stolen jewelry. She shouted, "How dare you accuse me?" and declared I'd be punished for it. Without warning, she slapped me hard across the face. The blow made me dizzy, and I stumbled into the wall, feeling like the whole room was spinning. My name is Rachel Collins, and I'm a 29-year-old marketing executive living in Chicago. I met my husband, Ethan, during our college years. We bonded over late-night study sessions, shared dreams, and plans for a perfect life together. We got married with high hopes for our future, but little did I know that my fairy tale would start to unravel almost immediately. The trouble began shortly after we exchanged vows. Ethan's mother, Diane, a fiercely protective woman in her mid-50s, started interfering in our lives in ways I had never anticipated. Diane's overbearing nature, which I had previously brushed off as quirky, turned into a major source of tension in our marriage. From unannounced visits to constant criticism of my choices, Diane made her presence felt in our home. She had a way of belittling me, whether it was about the way I cooked or how I decorated our living space. It felt like I was constantly under her microscope, with Ethan often dismissing my concerns. As the tension between Diane and me grew, Ethan remained oblivious or indifferent. Whenever I tried to bring it up, he'd simply say, "You know how my mom is." Try to be patient. I felt trapped, unheard, and increasingly isolated in my own marriage. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Ethan suggested we go on a honeymoon to Hawaii to reconnect and escape the chaos. For a brief moment, I felt relief. Finally, a chance to have Ethan to myself, away from Diane's suffocating presence. But the relief was short-lived. Upon returning from our honeymoon, everything fell apart. When we arrived back home, I was shocked to discover our bedroom in complete disarray. Clothes were strewn everywhere, jewelry drawers were open, and my entire $30,000 jewelry collection, including some precious family heirlooms, was missing. "Ethan," I screamed, my voice trembling. "Come here, look at this mess." Ethan rushed into the room, his face paling as he took in the chaos. "What happened here?" he muttered, sounding confused and worried. But deep down, suspicion began to creep into my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that Diane was somehow involved. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing and turning, haunted by the disarray in our room and the thought of my missing jewelry. The jewelry wasn't just expensive. It held sentimental value, with pieces passed down from my grandmother. I couldn't imagine who would dare to take it. But one thought persisted in my mind: Diane? Her controlling nature and disdain for me made her the prime suspect. The next morning, determined to get answers, I began asking around. I spoke to our neighbors and even checked in with a local pawn shop, hoping to find any clue about the missing jewelry. Just as I was about to give up, I got a call from Clara, our housekeeper. Her voice was shaky and filled with dread. "Rachel, I don't know how to tell you this, but Diane came by the house yesterday while you were away. She seemed interested in your jewelry." My heart sank. Clara's words were like a dagger to my chest. "Did you see her take anything?" I asked, my voice trembling. "No, but something about her behavior felt off. And Rachel, there's more. She's trying to blame me for the missing jewelry," Clara whispered, her voice thick with tears. My suspicions were confirmed, and now Diane was framing Clara for the theft. Furious, I confronted Ethan. "Ethan, we need to talk," I said, my voice firm. "I have reason to believe that your mother is behind the missing jewelry and that she's trying to frame Clara." Ethan looked stunned. "Rachel, are you serious? My mom would never do something like that." "She would, and she did," I snapped back. "Clara told me Diane was here while we were on our honeymoon. And now Clara is being blamed for something she didn't do. We can't let this go." Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "Fine, let's talk to my mom, but I really hope you're wrong about this." With evidence piling up, I was ready to confront Diane, determined to clear Clara's name and hold Diane accountable. Ethan and I drove over to Diane's house later that day, my heart pounding in my chest. The tension between us was thick, and I knew this confrontation was going to be ugly. As we pulled into the driveway, I steeled myself, determined to stay strong and defend Clara. Diane greeted us at the door, her smile fading when she saw the anger on my face. "Rachel, Ethan, what brings you here?" she asked, her voice laced with feigned innocence. I didn't waste any time. "We need to talk about my missing jewelry, Diane," I said, stepping into the house, "and how you tried to frame Clara for it." Her eyes narrowed, and she crossed her arms. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she retorted. "Are you really here to accuse me of theft?" Ethan stepped forward, trying to mediate. "Mom, Rachel has some serious concerns. Can we just talk this through?" Diane's eyes flashed with anger. "You think I'd steal from my own son and his wife?" She spat, her voice rising. "How dare you come into my house and throw these baseless accusations at me?" I refused to back down. "Clara saw you, Diane. She saw you in our house, and now she's being blamed for something she didn't do. You need to come clean." Diane's face twisted in fury, and before I could react, she raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. The impact sent me stumbling back, and I felt my vision blur for a moment. The sting of her hand on my cheek was shocking, but her next move was even more unexpected. She shoved me against the wall, her eyes blazing with rage. "How dare you?" she screamed. "You think you can come into this family and accuse me? You're nothing compared to me." Ethan rushed forward, finally breaking out of his stunned silence. "Mom, stop," he yelled, pulling her back. "What are you doing?" I steadied myself, my cheek burning and my heart racing. "This is exactly who she is, Ethan," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "She thinks she can hurt me and get away with it. But I'm done staying quiet." Diane's composure cracked, and for a moment, fear flashed across her face. She realized she had crossed a line, but her pride kept her from backing down. "Get out of my house," she hissed. "Both of you." I looked at Ethan, tears welling in my eyes. "Do you believe me now?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. He hesitated, looking between his mother and me, the weight of the situation sinking in. "Rachel, I'm so sorry," he whispered. I left Diane's house with my head held high, but the pain from the slap and the push still lingered. Ethan drove us home in silence, his grip tight on the steering wheel. It wasn't until we pulled into our driveway that he finally spoke. "Rachel, I don't know what to say. I never thought my mom was capable of this." I sighed, the emotional weight of everything pressing down on me. "Ethan, it's not just about the jewelry or what she did to me today. It's about the lies, the manipulation, and the way she tried to destroy an innocent person's life. Clara doesn't deserve this, and neither do I." Ethan nodded, guilt and sorrow etched across his face. "You're right. We need to clear Clara's name and make sure my mom faces the consequences." The next day, I met with Clara to reassure her that I was on her side. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she thanked me, her hands trembling from the stress of being wrongly accused. Together, we compiled everything we knew about Diane's movements and behavior. I also made sure to document the physical assault, taking photos of the red mark on my cheek as evidence. Determined to prove Diane's guilt, I decided to revisit the pawn shop where I had searched for my missing jewelry. I asked the shop owner if he had seen anyone suspicious trying to sell valuable items recently. To my surprise, he recalled a woman matching Diane's description attempting to sell a few high-end pieces, but ultimately leaving when she was asked for identification. It wasn't solid proof, but it was a start. I took this information to the police, who agreed to look into the case. I provided them with Clara's testimony, the pawn shop owner's statement, and evidence of Diane's aggression. The officer in charge assured me that they would investigate thoroughly. "We take matters like this seriously, Ms. Collins," he said. "Rest assured, we'll do our best to get to the bottom of this." Days passed, and the police worked diligently to gather evidence against Diane. I stayed in close contact with Clara, who was finally beginning to feel hopeful that her name would be cleared. Ethan remained supportive, though I could tell he was struggling with the reality that his own mother was capable of such betrayal. One evening, I received a call from the officer handling the case. "Miss Collins," he said, "we've gathered enough evidence to move forward. We have CCTV footage from a nearby shop that captured your mother-in-law carrying a jewelry box suspiciously similar to yours on the day of the alleged theft. We'll be issuing a warrant for her arrest." Hearing those words, I felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The idea of Diane facing arrest was surreal, but I knew it was necessary. She had crossed too many lines, and it was time for her to be held accountable. I informed Ethan, who was visibly shaken but agreed to accompany me when the arrest was made. The following morning, we drove to Diane's house, where the police had arranged to confront her. We parked down the street, and my heart pounded as we watched the officers approach her front door. Diane answered, her face a mask of confusion as they read her rights. "Diane, you are under arrest for theft and for attempting to frame an innocent person," the officer stated firmly. Diane's face twisted in shock and then rage. "How dare you?" she screamed, her voice breaking. "I'm being set up. This is a mistake." But the police were unfazed, handcuffing her as she continued to protest. Ethan and I stood at a distance, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness despite everything she had done. When Diane was finally led away, Ethan broke down, tears streaming down his face. "I never wanted this, Rachel," he whispered. "But I understand now. She needs to face the consequences." I put a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We did the right thing," I said softly, "not just for us, but for Clara and everyone else she's hurt." In the weeks that followed, Diane faced a series of legal proceedings. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and she was ultimately found guilty of theft and framing Clara. The judge sentenced her to 6 months in prison and ordered her to pay $30,000 in restitution for the stolen jewelry. It was a harsh but fair punishment, one that ensured she couldn't hurt anyone else for a long time. Clara was exonerated, and the relief on her face was a moment I would never forget. "Thank you for standing by me, Rachel," she said tearfully. "I don't know what I would have done without your support." Ethan and I worked hard to rebuild our relationship, and though the journey was difficult, the experience brought us closer in unexpected ways. I learned the importance of standing up for myself and those I care about, and I discovered a strength within me that I never knew I had. One evening, as I sat on our balcony, watching the city lights of Chicago twinkle in the distance, I felt a sense of peace. Justice had been served, and I was finally free from the shadow of Diane's manipulations. My life was no longer defined by the toxicity of the past, but by the hope and strength I had found within myself. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, leave a comment to share your thoughts or reactions. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated on our latest stories. Your support means everything. See you in the next video.